Here I've got an OPA. This is one of the tools we use to maintain an airway. To measure it, to make sure it fits a patient, you want to measure it from the corner of the mouth to the corner of the mandible, and this one fits. You want to insert it backwards and rotate it 180 degrees as you insert it, and the scoops around the tongue so that it doesn't block the airway. You don't want to use it on people with a GCS of more than 8, or and they have to have a motor score of less than 6, because otherwise you might induce the gag reflex. That'll cause them to vomit, they might aspirate, more airway problems. You've got to be careful. It is a hard piece of plastic. You don't want to damage their oral cavity. On infants, because they've got a soft palate, you just insert it straight away, because in the rotating process you could really damage it. You can't use this if they've got trismus, if they've got lockjaw, otherwise of course you're not going to get into the mouth. Or if you suspect jaw injuries, you don't want to use this either. So here I've got my MPA, which unlike the OPA, which ranges from size 000 to 4, this one ranges from 6.5 to 8.5 with St. John's. When inserting it to a patient, you want to measure it first from the corner of the nose to the corner of the mouth, and as you can see this one fits. You want to lube it up beforehand, otherwise it'll be really hard to insert, like I've lubricated this one already. You want to insert it perpendicular to the patient's face, like so. And as you can see, that went in really easily, but if you encounter any issues, you can give it a wiggle or try the other nostril. What might stop you from being able to put it in is if they've got nasal polyps, or if they're susceptible to nosebleeds, you might want to think about doing something else. You can suction through both the OPA and NPA, but unlike the OPA, with the NPA you can use it on people with a higher GCS because it doesn't induce the gag reflex. It's great because you can use it on individuals that have trismus, but you do have to be careful. You don't want to use it on people with suspected basal skull injuries. Right, so here I've got my LifeTrack 12. Before I run you through what's on the floor, I'm going to turn it on, and it's going to default to AUD mode. To change it to manual mode,
Connect.
I'll press advisory, use my toggle, select yes to enter in manual mode, and I'm going to tell it to run a user manual test. So select options, use the toggle, and use a test. So that's going to run through it itself now. I'm going to do my own little checks. I'll check my batteries at the back by using these buttons here. So that one's almost empty, but that one's almost full. They're really easy to take out. You just pull on this corner and they pop out. I'll go through my little pockets. So I have my blood pressure cuff, measures blood pressure. I've got my end-tidal CO2, which measures the amount of CO2 a patient exhales. I've got my SpO2, which measures the amount of oxygen is attached to hemoglobin cells. I have this here, which is found in the back pocket, aspirin, GTN, and a razor. They're a bit fuzzy. I have my 3-lead EKG monitors. There should be a 12-lead in here as well, which you don't have. I've got my defib pads, which should be in date, my test load, and what I would attach my pads to. In the back, like I said, I've got my medications and my razor. I have extra paper, and I have extra sticky dots. Now, I'm just going to wait for this to do its thing. Yay! Okay, so I have passed my user test, which is brilliant, to deliver a shock. In this case, I'm going to attach my test load, which will take the shock. I'm going to select my energy, which I want to be quite low, just for the sake of this video. I'm going to press charge. In real situation, I would say clear. I'm going to deliver my shock. Shock's been delivered, just fine. If at any point I wanted to cancel my charge, or my shock, charge it, and press that button at any point if it's charging or if it's finished charging. Right, so here I've got my 3-lead EKG cables, and as you can tell, it is called a 3-lead, but there are 4. I've got a little extra one here. So Jordan's already got the dots on because he's quite ticklish. Do you mind if I put these cables on you?
I don't mind at all.
Cool. So this goes on your left side. There you go. And right side. Left leg is red and green for the right side. Cool. Now I'm going to select my size. So select my lead. And I'm going to make it a 3-lead, and then it'll come up quite nicely. If he moves at all, the currents from his muscles will interfere with the EKG. That's alright, he's sitting nice and still for me. I can also change the size by pressing size. Let's go to 2. It'll increase the size as it monitors. You don't want to go too big, you'll get inaccurate results, or it'll over-exaggerate findings. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and select my heart rate and turn up my volume. I'm going to correlate between what I hear and what I feel in his pulse. Can I take the pulse? Yep. Yep, so that matches. That correlates just fine. Now to go back into AUD mode, just press analyze.
Connect electrodes.
Here I have the suction unit that we use on the road. Before you start using it, before you head off, we're going to do a few checks. We're going to check that the battery is in here on the right side of the unit. And it is. sure that you've got water, which you use to clean up the unit at the end of the job, and we've got the canister here, which usually holds a disposable bag, and that holds the contents of whatever you suction up, so usually blood, mucus, or vomit. To test the unit, you want to kick the hose, hold the test button, and turn it on full, and it'll run through it all itself. It's checking for the quality of the suction and the battery percentage. And both are fine. Maximum capacity. So, when you're about to suction a patient, you want to make sure that the head is tilted to the side, make sure that they can't aspirate things as easily, and we can access it. So you want to turn it on. In this case, I won't because it makes noise. You want to insert the catheter, the hard catheter, only as far as you can see, because you don't want to cause injury or induce gagging. Patients are unable to clear their own airway, which is why we are using this unit. You want to insert the yanker as far as you can see, put the finger on the hole and move outwards in circular motions to try and collect everything. So you don't push anything further down. You don't want to use this in a moving vehicle because it can cause injury. It is a hard piece of plastic. In that case, you would use a soft catheter, which requires a two-handed grip, where you block the air hose and you suction like that. You don't want to do this longer than 10 seconds because you will cause hypoxia and you may induce vomiting. Here I've got my oxygen tank. I know it's oxygen because it's a white tank, and on the road it'll have a label on it as well saying that it's oxygen. You don't want to get it confused with medical air. They're used for very different purposes. I've got my regulator here. I'm going to put it on my tank, but first I want to make sure I've got an intact Botox seal here. That is what helps create this barrier between the pressurized air, make sure it doesn't leak out. I'm going to put the regulator on and align the 3 prongs that are on this side of the regulator, and make sure it's level and tighten the screw. To check the pressure of the tank, just open it to the left and the pressure will come up on there. On this one, as you can tell, it's empty, just for instructional video purposes. When you want to test the dial, you want to go through each, and there's much of nothing here. You want to go through each of the possible flow rates. They go up in single litre increments, quarter increments, or they go up in 5s once you get to the 25 mark. That didn't really make sense. Anything else in the first half? No, I don't think so. Oh, take it off. You want to take it off, make sure it's on, bleed it, turn it off. So here I'm going to administer my oxygen to my patient. I've got my oxygen bottle and my nasal prongs. To start using your nasal prongs, you've got to attach the tubing to the bottle. Oxygen prongs are just a continuous tube with 2 holes in the end for each nostril. You want to turn it on and choose your flow rate. Nostril prongs you can use with a flow rate of about 2 to 4 litres per minute. Can I put these on you? Cool. You want to make sure that your prongs, if they are curved, that they're facing towards the patient. I'm going to put my oxygen bottle on the ground, lying flat, towards the patient, like so, behind the ears to secure them, and pulling up the handle so that it stays. Nasal prongs are used for patients that require low levels of oxygen for a high amount of time, for example patients with cord. The only problems you might encounter is it's non invasive, relatively comfortable. You might encounter drying of the sinuses, which can cause bleeding or infection. So here I've got my BVM. I have my mask, my filter, my PEEP, my bag, my reservoir, oxygen tubing with my oxygen tank. When ventilating a patient, you can demonstrate a C-grip, putting it with the large end down, pushing down, creating a nice even seal, and using your remaining fingers to grip around the jaw. Or, if you've got someone else that can do the ventilation, you can do a double-handed grip, and this can also allow you to do a jaw thrust. When ventilating a patient, you want to ventilate every 5 to 8 seconds, and you want to make sure that they've got a GCS of less than 8 and they are unable to ventilate themselves. What can make using a BVM difficult is if they're obese, this can all impact the seal. If they have facial hair, if they have a stiff neck, or if they vomit, that'll block the airway. They can aspirate, or if their tongue blocks the airway. So here I've got my first response kit. This is the diagnostic pocket up the top. I've got a stethoscope, BGL kit with at least 6 lancets. I have various sizes of blood pressure cuffs, pediatric and adult sizes, and I have my temperature measure. I've got clothing shears, and I've got a pupil torch in there as well. In this pocket here, it's kind of miscellaneous at the moment, it's got the incontinence sheet in there. On the road I would have paramedic drugs if I were to use that, or ACS sheets if I were to leave someone at home. On this pocket here, I've got my hemorrhage management pocket. I should have at least 2 tourniquets ready to go, tape, triangular bandages, at least 2 crepe bandages, several packets of gauze, combine dressings, and saline, at least 6 of those. On this side, I have the pouch which has this numbing spray. I have my cervical spine tag, I have my vomit bags, and I should have masks in there as well, but they're not there. Here I've got my glucose pocket. I've got oral glucose, glucagon, IV tube, and a 60ml syringe to administer a 10% glucose, which is very thick, so that's why I use a syringe, not use an IV. Now, in the main pocket, we have a lot. I have a towel for achieving a head tilt and chin lift that can be maintained. I've got a neck brace, a cardboard splint, sharps container, IV kit, which we don't really use now. I've got my BVM kit for both adult and pediatric sizes. They have a reservoir, 2 oxygen tubes, 2 masks, a bag of course, a PEEP, and a filter. Same for the pediatric one. Here I've got my LMA kit that come with various sizes of LMAs, a syringe to inflate the LMAs, and tube holders. Here I have my neb kit, which has 2 masks, a pediatric one included, my neb, and my tubing, which of course goes into the oxygen bottle. Here I've got a single drug pouch for neb, so I've got adrenaline, at least 2 full packs of those. I have salbutamol for asthma, just use them once. And I have drawing up needles as well as this here, which is ibuprofen. Yes, just great. Here I've got my airway management pocket, so I've got all my sizes of OPAs, MPAs, and I have laryngoscopes and the gills. So here I have my allergy relief kind of thing. I've got prednisone and loratadine, which is relief of itch or other allergy symptoms. I've got ondansetron, which is for nausea relief, and I've got tramadol, paracetamol, ibuprofen, and pentrox for pain relief. Okay, so Jordan with the call to a 65-year-old male that's last home. His wife has called him in and said he complained of pain before he collapsed. So we're going to enter the residence. It's an urban place, so it's easy to get in and get out. It's just a normal home. Hello, sir, can you hear me? Sir? Nope, no response to my voice. He didn't look at me when I went in, so that's telling me that something's wrong. So I'm going to stimulate pain. No response to that. I'm going to look at his airway. His airway's fine. I'm going to look, listen, and feel. Breathing for 10 seconds. Right, he's not breathing. So can you start compressions and I'm going to call for help. So this is AUT 1 calling comms. We've got an R49 requesting an R50. I'm going to attach my defib. Attach my pads. Hang on. The purpose is clear, they won't stick.
Do not touch the patient. Shock advised.
Cool.
Charging.
Yep, continue.
Stay clear of patient.
I'm going to do a head chin lift to open.
Deliver shock now.
Clear.
Press the orange button. Shock delivered.
Continue, please.
Pause. Start CPR.
Yep. I'll start ventilating my patient as soon as I can because I don't know when his last breath was. Do that on. I'm going to turn my oxygen to a flow rate of about 15. Make sure that my reservoir stays inflated, as that's what I'm ventilating my patient with.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Using a third of the bag, watching chest rise and fall. Cool. Inserting an OPA to maintain my airway. I've explained earlier how to measure it. Inserting it, turning it around. To get my suction ready.
28, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Yeah. Suction ready in case he vomits. Suction that up. Cool. So I'm going to continue doing this with my partner. We'll take turns after 2 minutes.
28, 29, 30.
I will continue doing this until backup arrives. I'm making sure I've got a good seal because I want to get as much oxygen in these 2 breaths because we're doing a 30-to-2 ratio. normally a person's heart would be beating and breathing at the same time, so it's important to try and get as close to that as possible. Don't want to compress the bag too much or too quickly. You'll increase gastric pressure and thoracic pressure as well, which if you also put too much of the oxygen into the lungs, you might burst alveoli. So now we're just waiting on the AED to prompt us. Now I will be talking to the wife about medical history and what was happening prior to the event, if he's had any other medical history.
Stop CPR. Analyzing heart rhythm. Stay clear
We'll
of
stop now.
patient.
Can you do a double-handed grip for me, please?
Yes.
Analyzing heart rhythm. No shock advised. Pause. If needed, start CPR.
Can you cut my... Thank you.
23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
So with my partner in this position, if needed, he can also do a jaw thrust and maintain it the whole time. And the ventilation is also up to me as well as the CPR. And in resus, we don't use a PEEP valve because we're compressing the lungs doing CPR.